Have you ever heard of a court case so bizarre, so utterly mind-bending, that it left seasoned lawyers speechless and the jury questioning everything they thought they knew about justice? Today we're diving deep into one of the most perplexing legal battles in recent history. A story that blurs the lines between victim and perpetrator, right and wrong. This isn't your typical courtroom drama. This is a real-life puzzle that continues to baffle legal experts to this day. It all began on a quiet suburban street, the kind of place where nothing ever happens. But one rainy Tuesday afternoon, a frantic 911 call shattered that peace forever. When police arrived at the home of a wealthy recluse, Arthur Finch, they found a scene that looked like it was ripped from a movie. Finch was found unconscious, but unharmed, in his study. The strange part? Nothing was stolen. The house was immaculate, except for one peculiar detail: a single, pristine white feather placed carefully on his desk. The initial investigation was a dead end. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no DNA, and no witnesses. The security footage had been mysteriously wiped for the exact time of the incident. It was the perfect crime, except nothing was actually taken. The media dubbed the perpetrator the Phantom, and for months the case went cold, leaving the community on edge. Then, 6 months later, it happened again. This time, the victim was a high-powered CEO, found in her locked office, again unconscious, but unharmed. And there it was, sitting on her keyboard, a single white feather. Panic began to set in. Who was this phantom, and what did they want? The police were stumped. The targets had no connection to each other, a recluse and a CEO. The motive was a complete mystery. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected place. A junior data analyst at the police department, working late one night, decided to run a cross-reference on the victim's distant pasts. What she found was astounding. Decades earlier, both Arthur Finch and the CEO had attended the same exclusive and no-defunct boarding school. This was the first real lead the investigation had. As detectives dug into the school's history, they uncovered a dark secret. The school had been shut down following a scandal involving a group of students known as the Albatross Club. This elite group had a reputation for cruel and elaborate pranks. Digging deeper, they found records of one particular incident, a so-called initiation ritual that went horribly wrong. A younger student had been left psychologically scarred after a terrifying ordeal orchestrated by the club. That student's name was Julian Croft. Suddenly, the police had a prime suspect. They tracked down Julian Croft, now a quiet, unassuming librarian, living a simple life 2 states away. When they brought him in for questioning, he didn't deny anything. He calmly admitted to being the Phantom. He explained that he had never recovered from the trauma of his school days. For years, he had been haunted by what the Albatross Club had done to him. This is where the case takes a turn that no one saw coming. Julian revealed his method. He was a master of social engineering and had a background in chemistry. He would spend months studying his targets, learning their routines and weaknesses. He used a sophisticated, odorless aerosolized sedative that he would disperse through their ventilation systems, rendering them unconscious for a short period. He would then enter, leave the feather a symbol of the Albatross Club, and leave without a trace. He never harmed them physically. His goal, he said, was to give them a small taste of the helplessness and fear he had felt for decades. The district attorney's office was confident. They had a confession, a clear motive, and a series of crimes. They charged Julian Croft with multiple counts of breaking and entering and assault. The media frenzy was intense. On one side, people saw a disturbed man exacting a bizarre form of vigilantism. On the other, a growing number of people saw a victim fighting back in the only way he knew how. The trial began, and it was immediately clear this would be no ordinary proceeding. Julian's defense attorney, a brilliant but eccentric lawyer named Elena Ramirez, argued a novel defense. She didn't dispute the facts. Instead, she put the victims' pasts on trial. She brought in psychologists who testified about the profound and lasting effects of childhood trauma. She argued that Julian's actions were not born of malice, but of a deep, untreated wound. The prosecution, led by a hard-nosed DA, argued that a traumatic past doesn't give you a license to commit crimes. He painted Julian as a cold, calculating criminal who terrorized his victims. The courtroom was electric. For the first time, Arthur Finch and the other members of the former Albatross Club were forced to publicly confront what they had done as teenagers. On the stand, under intense cross-examination, their carefully constructed lives began to unravel. They were no longer powerful, untouchable figures, but stammering, evasive adults confronted with their youthful cruelty. The most dramatic moment came when Julian Croft himself took the stand. He spoke not with anger, but with a profound sadness. He described the nightmares, the anxiety, the years of therapy. He explained that all he ever wanted was an acknowledgement, an apology that never came. He told the jury, "I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted them to feel, for a single moment, what it's like to be powerless. To be afraid in your own safe space, to be haunted." The closing arguments were stunning. The prosecutor demanded justice for the victims of the Phantom. He warned of the dangerous precedent it would. Said if people could use past grievances to justify criminal acts. But then, Alina Ramirez delivered a closing statement that would go down in legal history. She turned to the jury and said, "There are two sets of victims in this room, the ones who were put to sleep for an hour, and the one who has been living a nightmare for 30 years. The law demands you punish the crime, but your conscience must weigh the cause. Is this a case of malice, or a cry for help that went unanswered for far too long?" The jury was sent to deliberate. 1 day passed, then 2, then 3. The tension was unbearable. Everyone from the lawyers to the journalists covering the case was on the edge of their seat. What would they decide? The legal precedent was clear, but the moral dilemma was profound. It was a clash between the letter of the law and the spirit of justice. Finally, on the 4th day, the jury returned. The courtroom was silent as the foreman stood to read the verdict. On all counts, not guilty. A gasp echoed through the courtroom. The prosecution was stunned. The former members of the Albatross Club looked on in disbelief. Julian Croft simply closed his eyes as tears streamed down his face. It was an outcome that defied all legal expectations. The jury later explained their decision to the press. They said that while they didn't condone Julian's actions, could not, in good conscience, convict a man who had been so clearly broken by the actions of others. They saw his crimes not as an attack, but as a desperate, albeit misguided, attempt to heal an old wound. They felt the true injustice had occurred 30 years ago, and sending Julian to prison would only compound it. The verdict sent shockwaves through the legal community. It sparked a massive debate about the nature of justice, trauma, and accountability. Can a crime ever be justified by past suffering? Where do we draw the line? The case of the Phantom didn't provide easy answers. Instead, it left us with difficult questions that we're still grappling with today. It serves as a powerful reminder that the law is not always black and white, and that sometimes the most shocking courtroom dramas are the ones that happen in real life. What do you think? Did the jury make the right call? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. This is one of those stories that really makes you think about what justice truly means. Thanks for watching, and if you found this case as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into incredible true stories. See you next time.